Welcome to the Salty Investors episode number 18. I'm Scott and the guy down there is Tim. How are you today, Tim? It's
Yeah, pretty
Australia
good.
Day, mate.
Oh, yeah, got to be good in Australia Day, hasn't it?
Oh, well, Invasion Day, if you like. You know,
Okay.
yeah, whatever tickles your fancy, depends who you are.
hmm
So what's on
I'll
that
go with
topic,
you.
let's go with my salt. Let's go with my salt this week. So Lydia Thorpe has come out, and I think with the collaboration of Clementine Ford. So, some
hmm
your wonderful company there, two
Yes.
complete idiots together, have come out and said that, maybe Australians should pay reparations via donating 1% of their salaries every week. Now, normally I'd be salty about a proposal like that. And so on principle, I'm salty about it. But in reality, because it's voluntary, I think it's great, because what you'll actually get then is the virtue signalers who want to constantly say that they live on stolen land, that they want a voice to Parliament, and which means, inserting race into the Constitution as part of that. They get to put their money where their mouth is. So, all of those virtue inner city latte sipping ABC watchers, off you go. Now you have no excuses for paying reparations. You can do it voluntarily. Lydia and Clementine will sort you out. So, what do you reckon, Tim?
Oh, at least they've got an outlet now to absolve their sins, and
Mm,
actually put their money where their mouth is, like you said.
mm.
Can't hurt, you know. Spread the wealth around a little bit here. All of these people have got excess money, so why not share it with,
Yep.
with those who need it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a quality move, I
It's like
reckon.
it's like tithing, isn't it? It's like tithing for religious people. You do
Yeah,
it every week. You don't even notice.
that's
Straight
right.
out the door, and you can just walk around with a halo because you've collected some virtue tokens on the way. Um,
Yep.
anyway, enough of that. What's your salt for this week, Tim?
Oh, just the constant chorus of people like Delorean saying things like, the RBA, shouldn't be lifting rates. They're going to collapse the economy, send us in a recession, which might be true, but what's their
Mm,
solution? I just don't see them putting forward anything solid here. Like, what are they going to cut rates? Just hold them where they are and hope inflation comes
mm,
back down? Like, you can't have it both ways. You've got to really come up with some
yeah,
solutions here. So,
yeah,
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 that's all.
yeah. I guess the only argument they can make in favour of it is, look, inflation is rolling over.
Yes.
What you saw. We'll get onto that actually. We might as well
Yeah,
get onto that right now. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think they're right to say that we should be cutting rates, but let's get to it, shall we?
Oh, they didn't say that,
See,
but like, what is their solution?
yeah,
just
exactly.
hmm
What is their solution? Um, so this was CPI came out. Was that what, Tuesday? Was it, or
yeah.
Monday or Tuesday? So 7.8% year over year. Remember, the RBA did say it could get over 8. So the
Yes.
RBA's actually been kind of
Oh
accurate
wow.
on this one, right?
hmm
Bit in the ballpark, which is unusual. So yeah, and obviously pretty nasty, 7.8% year over year.
hmm
Uh, Inflation in all kinds of categories. But of course, this is backward looking, Tim.
Yes.
And so
Mhm.
that's why I included in our next slide the NAB monthly business survey. This was taken in what's that, 4th to 9th of January. That's when the survey was taken. So if you
Oh, okay.
have a look at things I want to point out here are things like you can see activity slowing down. Employment's gone from a 14 in October of 2022 to an 8. Profitability 21 to 12. Trading 29 to 18. Business conditions 22 to 12. Stocks 11 to 6. So they're not
Mm.
stocking as much. Forward orders 7 to 3. Now have a look at labour costs. They've gone from 2.8 to 2.
hmm
Purchase costs 4 to 2.5. Final product prices 2 to 1.5. Retail prices 2.8 to 2.3. So, point there is to say that inflation is easing.
Yes.
If we believe. I mean, this is a decent survey. It's been around for a long time. So, inflation is easing. I mean, the point is, though, all the reserve banks whatever you think of them, they are very aware of bouts of inflation that got away from them
Yes.
in the 70s, in the early 80s. And they don't want to be caught short. They don't want to be seen to not go far enough, get it under control, only for it to run away again, because that'll be even worse. And so, I mean, if the only lever you have really, because, I mean, let's face it, the government's fiscal policy is not going to change. They're just going to spend more money.
Yep.
The only lever you have is the blunt instrument of interest rates. That's really all you can do. And it's about how high you hike them, how quickly. The RBA's already slowed right down.
Yes.
The futures market yesterday, I haven't included that chart. The day of the announcement of the inflation rate, they went from about a roughly 50-50 chance of a rate rise to 75% in one day. So the market thinks the RBA is going to 3.3, and then just think about that for a moment. I mean, inflation's at 7.8 year over year, where we look like going to 3.3. It's not, or 3.35, isn't it? Yes. 3.35. I mean, there's still a large gap there. So there is room for the inflation to come down, and the RBA doesn't have to rush up to meet it, No. And they did say, remember last year, one of the things we pulled out of one of their statements is they wanted to get people used to the idea that rates were going up, and and doing it slowly is one of the ways they do that. So, I thought they'd go again in Feb. I think we said that last year, but whether they go again after that, and it's not clear to me, as we'll get into later, that they'll necessarily have to come down. Just depends how sharp of a downturn we have in economic activity.
Yeah, well, everyone's talking not just one now; they're saying 2 or 3 more to come. So,
yeah.
I'm just worried about the sentiment. People have just got it in their heads now that inflation's stuck in here now, and this is the problem because. We went a bit too soft, I personally think. I think we went to 25s too early, and I've been, telling you all this time, that I think, if they stuck with the 50s, I think that sentiment would be broken by now, and we wouldn't have to put in a couple more. But I think, go back a few episodes, I said that February, it was going to start to, the old currency in circulation type chart, or M2, if other people like M2, that's all... flattening out or going backwards. There's no growth there. So I'm sure inflation's coming down. It's just, can we get to a 4 number quick enough? And then, and then if they do have to, something cracks, they can cut rates, and then it's not going to shoot back up. I just heard a couple of times, that when they do that, inflation then jumps back up to 7%, and then they have to retighten 3 or 4 times after that.
Yeah.
And that cycle just kills markets because no one knows what the hell's going on. And
I think something that was prevalent in, say, the 70s is that because of a much more stronger unionization, when inflation went up, there was automatic pay rises. And so that wage price spiral was harder to break. With lower unionization, you've got less. So, inflation comes out every year, and as inflation was 7%, we get a 7% pay rise. That's not the way it works for more than 90% of the private sector now. So back in the day, it used to, a lot more unionization meant a lot more wage rises, and which helps keep inflation in train. And people are up in arms because the RBA is essentially saying we don't want wages to get out of control, which is they're basically saying they want people to take a real wage cut.
Yes.
I mean, that's nasty, it at the end of the day. And that's nasty. It is nasty. And it's not like real wages have done well in the last decade anyway. They just haven't. So, and of course, the RBA is a very unpopular institution at the moment, but that they're not there to be your friend, to be honest. It's not their job. They're not there to make it easy for you. So it'll be interesting to see. I've said, like a broken record, I just don't think our economy can take much higher. I mean, I'd be very surprised if we got to 4, but if we did, that's our housing market will get absolutely trashed, which I don't care because our housing market is way overvalued. Probably Canada's probably the only
Yes, 13% they
close
dropped.
one.
Yeah, they've already
Yeah.
dropped 13%. So,
So Toronto's maybe more expensive than Sydney, but that's about it. I mean, we are way overpriced, and we could do with a reality check. Just don't know, the cacophony of voices will get louder and louder as people find it tougher and tougher, and see when the RBA eventually snaps. I mean, what do you think? This is a question. What do you think internally? Like, I don't know if I'm just imagining this, I'm just projecting this, but don't you think central banks around the world, may have said this to you before, think maybe all that cheap money was a bit of a mistake? What we really want is we want interest rates to normalize to a higher level, whatever that is. We don't want to go back to 1%, 0.5%. We want it somewhere around, say, 3 or 4 going forward to impose some discipline so we don't blow bubbles. But they can't really say that publicly. I don't know. Am I just imagining that?
well, they want room for cuts. They still want to be able to print stuff, but when are you going to lift? And this is the problem. There's never a good time to lift. There's always a reason to cut, and it's just like paying down the debt in the government. When's a good time? Oh, just rolls on, and then we just wonder why we get ourselves into these holes. So I don't know. I don't think they think that clearly about it, but yeah. You hope they would. They're trying to be prudent about it, and I'm surprised the market's handled it as well as it has now. You look at 2008 and the Tampa, we didn't even move that much, and the market freaking collapsed. So there's a bit of resilience there. So yeah.
Yeah, the market is holding up pretty well. I mean, you look at the S&Ps, what is it, 15% from all-time highs or something? Like, it's not that far away, but it is at the top of this sort of trading range that it hasn't been able to break out of for a while.
Yeah. That 4,000 band now is just, we're still trading in that. So yeah.
Well, this is just another theme we've been harping on. I thought it was an interesting one that consensus analyst estimates and earnings recessions, and you can see the earnings recessions, and it's worth noting that earnings recessions don't have to necessarily happen with an economic recession. So you've got a earnings recession there in, what is that, 15, 16 on the chart. There was no economic recession at that time, but it looks pretty clear that, I mean, all the recession signs are there. I know this seems to be the most predicted recession in history at this point, which worries me because it's usually sort of fools most of the people most of the time. But just another sort of reminder that earnings will probably have to come down. Will come down.
But did you see Tesla and they're earning, they're beating top and bottom line, they're doing pretty good. Margins are being compressed a bit, which is what you expect. Your cost of goods are getting a little bit hammered here, but wow, I was surprised. And does that translate to everything else? If Tesla's doing all right, surely we're not going to see this downgrade in earnings.
Did it bounce? Did it bounce hard as Tesla or not?
No, I don't think it went to. But
that's what I find interesting about sort of, if you go back a couple of years and Tesla came out with a result like that, it'd just be up 13, 15% or something in a day. Yeah. And the reactions are far more muted. And I just think that reflects the fact that these things were so overvalued in the past. I mean, they get good news, but then it doesn't really translate too well. I don't know, and that's part and parcel of this kind of environment. People got used to earnings beat, stock goes up 20% or something, and it's not happening anymore. Following on, I mean, this is from Grantham's GMO's newsletter. I like reading his stuff. He does have a reputation, of course, for being overly doomy and gloomy, and so he does. I think his worst case scenario, he painted sort of 50% down from where we are now. But that's the worst case scenario. But
3,200 is his base case.
That's his base, yeah.
32, so.
and said it'd be likely to trade below that because, of course, it doesn't,
Yes.
which actually, that's kind of what we've been That's what we've been hoping for.
Yeah.
whether we get it or not.
We'll lump ourselves in the same crowd as him. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. 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 What I like about Grantham is he's empirical. He brings empirical data to bear, and he's got a bit of a bad reputation in the last sort of decade for being overly bearish. But maybe he's just overly early.
Mm-hmm.
Just early. But yeah, so commonly people talk about it, the 10-year 2-year inversion.
Mm-hmm.
The 10-year 3-month has a perfect track record, and that's what he's got here. Every time it's inverted, there has been a recession. Every time, without failure, it's clearly inverted pretty far now. But problem is there's only 8. It's only 8.
Examples. Yeah.
What do you call it? 8 examples? Yeah. So a sample size of 8, which is always should make you take pause. But yeah, that's not a bad reading, that one. And I think the other thing that is worth reminding people of is because people are so geared towards, firstly, when rate rises will be turned off, but then when rate cuts will start happening. Howard Marks, remember last week we mentioned that Howard Marks had said that his sort of base case was that maybe they finish raising rates and they just keep it on hold for the rest of the year.
Yep.
And that would really deflate some people's expectations. But what Grantham shows here is that even when you start cutting rates, the market tends to keep going down. It's not a panacea. You generally get a dead cat bounce and the market ends up lower. I remember, people forget. I mean, they were cutting rates in the US, September 2007, the bear market hadn't even started yet.
Yeah.
The recession hadn't even started yet, and they were cutting. And it went down 55%.
Well, there's a reason why they cut. They don't just cut for freaking willy-nilly. It's something serious has happened. Like, it's like catastrophic, They don't just wake up one morning and go, oh, yeah, we've had enough of this, I'm going to start cutting. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And same again. I mean, I remember the one in 2000. I mean, 2000 was just a horrible, drawn out bear market. Went on for a long time, and that's what, to me, this one feels more like that than it does 2007 because it is mostly a speculative equity bubble, rather than a debt fueled or a debt crisis in the banks. So the banks don't look that bad. The banks haven't been bid up. They're not, as far as I know, they're not dicing up mortgages and calling shit sugar and selling it as AAA.
Well, I haven't seen the ads on TV, borrow 110% of your, loans and, all that sort of crap that was going on in 05, 06, so.
Yeah. So, I think, again, just beware of the expectation that interest rate cuts, that interest rates just not being raised is some signal for the market to tear off again. Could be, might, don't know. This time might be different, but history suggests, you might be a bit premature. Again, full caveat, I'm hoping that it plays out similar to these events before, because I want to get stocks cheaper. If I can get them for half price, then why wouldn't I?
Yep. I've been dipping my toe in. Can't wait.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, bought a bit of Docs, Doc Martens. So just crashed way too much.
It did fall off a cliff. Did it fall off a cliff because of that announcement about supply chain issues? Is that
and I thought that's more of a temporary type measure. So, start a small little tranche there, and consumer discretionary isn't what I like. So, but like it got hammered last year. That's probably one of the worst. So, and it was already, down a heap, and then it falls another 30%. When are you going to buy? 75% down? It's already down 75%. What are you going to wait another 50 after that? You're like, what are you going to do? So,
did they only just list a year ago or something?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow. There's not much history to go on there, so I am.
Yeah.
I'm flying by the wind here a little bit. I'd rather buy Otis or something like that. Something a little bit more history to it. That I understand a little bit better. But yeah, hit my limit order. Just have a bit of a go at it. So yeah,
Why
we'll
not?
see. It's already gone down a little bit more. So just to teach me a
Oh,
lesson.
well, yeah, I mean, because as we did, when did we do it? Did we do it 2 weeks ago when we highlighted the bounce into consumer discretionary here in Australia, at least? A lot of 20% plus for a lot of us Aussie consumer discretion, because I think the first half up until December 31st was pretty strong. Maybe I don't know if they're getting ahead of themselves, but if we are in for a proper deep recession, I would have thought you're going to get another opportunity to have a go at some of them.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's for sure. But I think they're going to last 10 years. I see Doc Martens still being a brand in 10 years, so I'm not too.
Well, they were trendy when I was 18. That's 30 years ago. They were trendy. It's still trendy.
So hopefully, I'm buying a little bit of Nike esque type investment here. Not as high quality as Nike, obviously, but yeah, they're doing direct to consumer, all the things we've talked about. So I just think, maybe here I'll buy something. So yeah, just missed out on a few others like FICO and all these other ones that. So yeah.
Well, let's have a look at what you got this week. I saw this. I think Livewire Markets, did they put out something about the Lottery Corp?
You did mention it to me, and I boo-hooed it a little bit. So, but I've come back to it again. It's because it's not a high-end type. I don't think it's the political class are going to go after this one. I think they will go after casinos and the the poker machine type things. And this is a bit more insulated to that because it's more blue collar and it's less, bad on society, because it's a bit of a flutter, $10 here every week or something. It's not like the end of the world. It's not people aren't going to end up on the streets because of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I have to give you a bit of credit there because of that. I overlooked into this one too much, and then thought, I've come back to it and looked at the numbers. I'm like, yeah.
So do these guys don't run? Do they run? Let's say I say Keno's in all the clubs, which is great, and it's one of those things. If you're sitting there, let's say I don't know, you're waiting for a table or something, or you're waiting for people to get there. Just put on a Keno, and it costs what, $1 or $2 or whatever. Yep. Or depending how many games you want to play, and it's pretty. Yeah, I mean, I suppose you can waste a lot of money, but it just doesn't seem as nasty as, say, poker machines. Have people feed their paycheck through a poker machine. Now, what other lottery products? They're not Powerball and
I think stuff like that. Yes. So that's where this is the problem. This is the bear case. Like, as we move to a more digital age, they're going to have to put an app on your phone, which might be more convenient. You'll be able to, and you don't have to pay the news agent a cut here of it.
Yeah.
But people can ignore those apps when they've got 50 other apps on their phone. Are they going to be really thinking about putting in their Powerball or the lottery type tickets?
So this was the bull case for it, because it's like much higher margin by not going to your newsagent. And I think newsagent sales are 75% or something of the total, maybe even more than that at the moment. So you can go online and put your Powerball in that way. But they don't have an app. That's surprising, isn't it? You would have thought that was pretty straightforward.
I know, but will that translate? I'm just a bit worried that they'll lose some of that market share because people just forget about it, or they don't get in that habit of doing it. It's a bit of an older demographic as well. I know they're not technology savvy, and then is a new generation going to pick that up and run with it as well?
I mean, if you're 70 and you go in every Thursday and get your Powerball in the morning, you're not going to stop. You're not going to switch the phone, are you?
No way. Yeah. But it's just the next generation, because I'm trying to look at 10 years here. Trying to think, okay, will the next generation have this sort of habits? And it is a pretty tight industry. Like, you're not going to set up tomorrow. I'm going to put up $5 million and set up a numbers game here. Like, no one's going to do that. And you've got all the regulations, and it's not an easy thing to do. Especially when you've got people here who have been doing it for decades and decades. So, you talk about all the sin things. You got gambling, you've got drinking, tobacco.
Yep.
This is what you look at these gross margins here. They're freaking insane.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
80% gross margins. The operating margin gets hammered a little bit here, but I'm sure they're
Yeah.
going to work on that. That's going to creep up over the years. The debt is out of control. You've got a total debt here of
Yes.
2.5
Yeah, that's right.
billion. But then you look at the free cash flow here, you've got 600 million. If they continue that, 5 years, they can burn down that, not
Yep.
printing shares. Capital here is pretty well allocated. They're doing well.
Yep.
So, and it's not that expensive. So,
What's the trading? It's so what? There's no PE. In the
I think they're
last
missing a few
6
numbers at the moment. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see, 2022 they had price to free cash flow of 16. And then you see return on invested capital in the 20s. That just is impossible. Like, you never see that. Like,
yeah.
It's just, can you look forward, 5-10 years and think, okay, people are gonna, because you want them to move to a digital platform, because you get rid of all the news agents and you keep all that margin yourself. So that operating margin will just fly. It'll fly up to 60% or something. They're just going to have so much. If people move to online, the next generation does. This will be in one of those, 10, 20 bagger, easy. So
yeah, absolutely. All right. You want to have a chat? We probably could have thrown in this earlier, but this is a good chart. This is when fixed rate home loans expire, and they're going to have to go significantly higher, we assume. So the bulk of those are coming sort of in the second half of this year, aren't they?
Yep. So that's when the pain, you got to give, people might have a few savings, put a few extra months ahead, into the offset mortgage here. So it doesn't exactly mean at the end of the year things are going to go crazy. I think it's got a little bit more time than that. But
yeah,
you look in 2024, it's going to look nasty if they haven't got inflation under control and they haven't done a few cuts, and then people are resetting into, 6, 5 or 6, like, a
from
mortgage
3.
rate from 3, from 3. Like, wow, that is, a couple of $1,000 a month. Some of these mortgages, that's got to come out of the economy. So I don't know how many of them are going to second homes and all this. They're all going to, all these investment places, if they aren't getting people spending and going into Airbnbs and all that, like, wow, like, it's going to be a fire sale. So
well, I have seen a lot of predictions, property people saying, yes, the first half of the year will continue, but turn around and prices will be going up by the end of the year. And I'm like, Jesus, it's fairly optimistic. It's just the same tone about, look through to 2024 earnings, everything will be fine, and the stock market will be up and away again. There'll be rate cuts, and all will be roses. So that looks. It doesn't look. It's not clear to me that which one will play out, but it's not clear to me that everything's looking rosy.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, we might leave it there, Tim. We're just about out of time. Thanks for checking in this week, everybody, and we will see you next time.